really okay.
Okay. Hopefully we're live now. Although I need to.
It looks like not just.
What?
I said not just yet. It's not showing anything.
Okay. Well, I think there's a bit of a delay.
I see.
Okay.
Oh, there we are. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us and your patience. We don't know what happened, but we're just rolling with the punches. So, Becky and Bethany have just given what they are currently reading. So I guess I'll talk about what I'm currently reading, and then we'll move into the buzzwords section of it. So hopefully we're through the technical difficulties and like the main discussion won't be interrupted. So for my audiobook, I'm reading The Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Aiken. And Becky and Bethany, like you guys, well, this is so a book you would enjoy. It's like got a very gothic feel to it, and it's in a time there's train travel, so like trains are around. I think it's like early 1900s. That's like the sense I'm getting. But there are like wild wolves around, and I think the wolves can be like really aggressive, and I think there's going to be some magic in the story. But yeah, it's just very mysterious, and these two girls have just met at the beginning, and it's just really gripping writing style. Like it's very beautifully written, so I'm really excited about it. And it's actually the author's daughter who reads the audiobook, which is really cool. Okay, then for my physical book for middle grade marks that I'm reading, it's Hattie Big Sky. This is by Kirby Larson, and I can't remember if I had heard of this before, like a couple months ago, but it won a Newbery honor. This is like Little House on the Prairie, except more intense. She's like 16 and she inherits a land claim from her uncle in Montana. And for her to keep it, she just has to go and like manage the farm on her own. And so it is nice though, because she does have several neighbors that know her, and I just was pulled in right away. Something about the writing style and the character of Hattie. And what's nice is there's a couple people she's writing letters to regularly while this is happening, so the letters are a nice little variety in there. But this is later than Little House on the Prairie, because this is set during World War I. She's writing to someone who's away serving. Yeah. So, which I wonder if that's accurate. I wonder, like, would it have been likely in 1917? Would many Americans have been fighting in World War I mean, at that point?
Some did, but 1917, yeah, the United States was only in the war for a year.
Okay. Because it goes all the way until... Oh, wait, okay, so maybe that timeline is right, because it ends in November 1918. So
okay, yeah, that's when the war ends.
Okay, all right. So probably right then. And yeah. And then I'm working on the next Wheel of Time, the 11th one. So I am 245 pages in, so only 500 to go.
Your dedication to this series is impressive.
I know. So this is the last one that Robert Jordan actually wrote before he died. And unfortunately, I think you can kind of tell, like, he was not feeling that great towards the end. He passed away from cancer. I can't remember what kind it was. I think it was pretty rapid, though.
Okay.
So I had realized I was actually saying to Dave, what kind of is flip-flop for me in this series that is a little frustrating is that the ratio of politics versus action in the story. So I like a light ratio of politics in a story and a lot of action. And the beginning ones were a lot like that. But then as you move into the later ones, there are these women that can do magic called Aes Sedai. And there is just like conversation after conversation, really lengthy, talking about like who's going to be in power and how they'll be in power. And it just goes on and on and on. So Dave thinks the next 3 books that Brandon Sanderson wrote are more heavy on action versus politics, which I would be okay with. So yeah, I'm very attached to the characters, so that's why I'm willing to keep going on with it.
Again, your dedication is impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Becky very helpfully made us categories for our buzzwords. So I guess we could just each will talk about one category and maybe each talk about one aspect of the category that is a buzzword for us. Um, so the first category was places, and I'll say one that is for me are small towns. I
Mm-hmm.
really like a small town story where you can kind of have a cast of characters, maybe around a dozen characters that you know their little idiosyncrasies, and that maybe a couple like funny things that have happened with each character. It's very warm feeling. I'm thinking about Mitford, the first Mitford book that I just read. I love that about it. And even actually in the Henry Huggins series, which Henry lives on Clickitat Street, which I love that name for some reason.
That's a great
He
name.
knows Ramona and Beezus, and there's different people around town that are mentioned in both series. Um, and so I really enjoyed that about it. And yeah, so I enjoy small towns in them. So I guess we'll have Bethany go
Okay.
next.
I like I'm going to say hotel slash mansion because
That
kind
was
of
on
like
my list too.
it's kind of like the small town is nice, but this is kind of like zoom in even closer. You've got all these people, theoretically, all these people. Like a mansion, you a lot of times have either guests or a large family, and then the help maybe sometimes even depending on what kind of a story it is. So you'll have people living under one roof and there's stuff going on in that like very specific environment. And same with the hotel. Although a hotel sometimes tends to be a little less like they all know each other and a little more like they're all
Oh,
strangers to. But still the dynamic is there that it's really fun. So yeah, that's
totally
mine
agree.
or one of mine.
Yes.
Becky?
Yeah, so kind of going off of that, I liked how you typed that in, Bethany. Like you get this. Wow, words are not working in my brain tonight. But like a nuclear set of people in a mansion or a hotel. Those are on my list too, or an estate of some sort. But similarly, again, words. Gonna be a fun night. Similarly to that is like a school or a boarding school setting, especially
Oh
because
yeah.
I do love reading and I do love learning, and there's just that, and I still haven't figured out why I love the school setting so much. But I think that's part of the reason why I love the Harry Potter series, because it's a school, and yes, absolutely love it. And then you can have different dynamics of like teachers or students and their dynamics with each other, or different grade levels, or what people are learning. There's just a lot that you can do in that setting, which I just love. I don't get tired of it.
Yes. Two locations in the US, and I'm thinking of particularly for historical fiction, and like very opposite, either like southern US or New England. I really like both
Oh.
of those locations for historical fiction because I feel like obviously there's such um, a rich history in New England of like American history, and then obviously a really tumultuous history in the southern US. Um, and I think it can make for a really like the tumultuous history of the South is obviously like a painful history, but it's also a way to kind of really get to know the heart of characters.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
like the Kitchen House. I don't know if you guys have read
Oh,
that,
it's on
but
my list, but I haven't read it
okay,
yet.
it was good. It was really good, and it's really interesting to see the different power dynamics because it's set on a plantation. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously there are the black slaves that live there that are like lowest on the rung. But then there's an Irish immigrant, and so she's in between the family and the black slaves. So all of those dynamics are really interesting, and they just really change things. But there's something also I think that can be really like poetic about Southern novels,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and just they have a lot of heart to them. Yeah, like Kate D. Camillo, excuse me, Kate D. Camillo's books. Um, and I don't know if you guys have read Jim the Boy, but that's small town in the South, and it's just
Ooh.
about a boy being raised. His dad died before he was born, I think, and so he's been raised by his mom and his three uncles. Um, and so I feel like you just get to see a lot of heart with those characters.
I'd say another one for me would be the Netherlands. Just
Ooh.
because I like that's where my family was from, on my dad's side. So I've read, oh my goodness, is it One More Day? Now I'm blanking on the name of the author. I don't remember. So she's written a couple of more like YA novels that are pretty famous, and like I'm totally blanking on the names of them. But the one series that I read, it was just 2 books, so it wasn't. There might have been a third, but the third one was more of a novella, and it wasn't. I didn't read it because everybody was like, "Yeah, this didn't really add much to it." She pretty much wrapped everything up in the first 2 books, but it was kind of like back and forth between the Netherlands and a couple other places, and I was like, "Ooh, I really enjoyed that aspect of it." Like the culture and stuff like that was familiar to me. And then I think one of the John Green books was set, or no, they visited Amsterdam, I believe. Again, blanking. Everybody's probably like yelling at me in the comments, like, "Oh, I know the name of that book." It's been a long day. I'm like, lots, but yeah, I'm struggling to find books set in the Netherlands that are like not YA. For some reason, those are the only ones I've come across so far.
Is the miniaturist set in the Netherlands?
Maybe I haven't read that one, but I think I've heard of that and thought like, ooh, like we're talking about Buzzwords. It was like, oh, ooh, I might want to read that one.
Yes, that one.
Like,
that one has been on my Goodreads list for a long time, but I think it's on the longer side. So I keep thinking like, oh yeah, I'll get to that at some point, and then I haven't yet. But
yeah, just the Netherlands. I like reading books that have something either set there or have something to do with that. What about you, Becky?
So countries-wise, England and Scotland always grab my attention because I mean, England and Scotland and the UK is known for their literature, so a lot of classics are set in England and Scotland. Also, I want to say this carefully because I don't want to stereotype. There is kind of a stereotype of the British being more stoic. Some of the ones that I have met have been very friendly, so I'm not saying that they're all stoic. But I'm not a super like passionately romantic kind of person, so I really enjoy when you get a book that's like got more of a British dry sense of humor and or stoicism. I just seem to like it just fits with my personality. As for in the United States, American Midwest, so as you were saying, like a lot of historical fiction. So if it's a story set on the prairie or in a small town in the heartland of the United States, I love those. And New England, specifically Maine, because Maine has such a unique culture. Like Mainers are proud of being Mainers, and Mainers have some New England traits, but they're also just Mainers. Like they're part of New England, but they also identify with their own state. And so they're a little different from Vermont and Massachusetts and Connecticut, and they know it and they're proud of it. And although I will say sometimes books set in Maine can be frustrating for me because I can kind of tell if the author has vacationed in Maine or if they actually live in Maine. Because those that vacation in Maine will just talk about the ocean and it'll be usually set at like a beach house or something. And those who actually like raised in Maine tend to set their stories in the woods and have a little bit more of like a gritty isolationist spin on their stories, which is very like really reflects the Maine culture. And I just find it so fascinating and enjoyable to read because it's just this little niche part of you, like little tiny part of the United States with a big personality.
Yes.
That does, like New York has a really big personality, but I feel like it's more well known. I don't feel as though you really hear about like, oh yeah, it's a book set in Maine, so you know what that means. Like people just think Stephen King, who does capture Maine very well. But yeah, anyway, that was a very long rambling response, but those are my feelings on places. Oh, and pretty much anything set in a library or bookshop because
Oh, right.
I love
I didn't even
books.
think of that.
Yeah.
As duh. Okay, I do like there to be train travel.
Ooh.
Now, but not too much train travel. Like Murder on the Orient Express was too like I felt very claustrophobic while
Okay.
reading it. So I really like, there to be a train trip involved, but not necessarily the whole thing being limited to.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think about travel being a place in and of itself, or going between places.
Yeah.
Would you say that
that's
you
fun.
enjoy travel stories then?
I mean, I always like there to be a bit of travel in murder mysteries.
True. Okay.
Like, oh, they found out there's this person that they knew 20 years ago that they had this really crazy argument with, and like they want to know if they still know them. So they travel over, a few hours away to see this person. That kind of thing.
Okay.
There's even I really enjoyed there was a Inspector Wexford book by Ruth Rendell where it's set in England and he travels all the way to LA to like question someone.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty
And
far. That's not a short. It's not a short trip.
And I really enjoyed it about it.
Are there any places
Bethany,
that you? Oh, I'm sorry, Bethany. Did you have any more?
Oh no, that's fine. I travel in the library / bookstore, both buzzwords for me, so you guys covered them.
Cool.
Are there any places that turn you off? Not saying that they are bad in and of themselves, and it might be great for another reader, but is there a place where you're like, oh, the setting is this, that might not be my thing?
Okay, one more that I did like that I forgot to include is the Mediterranean. I've read several stories set in the Mediterranean, and I really like those. Like My Family and Other Animals is set in Corfu, and there's a historical fiction that I read called, I think it's just called The Island, about a group of lepers that are sent to this island right off the coast of Greece.
Oh.
And that was really cool. And then just reading Romola by George Eliot is set in Florence, and Florence is just like so intertwined. It's so like integral to the story. So I really like that. But now I'm going to be thinking locations not interested in. Okay, like random non-major cities. So well, Chicago counts as a major city, but like nothing about Chicago to me is like that just screams having a novel written in it.
Oh, but so many great movies are set in Chicago.
Like what?
Home Alone and While You Were Sleeping are all set in Chicago.
And Home Alone.
Also, Chicago is like the American Midwestern city. So I see Chicago and I'm like, it's in the Midwest! I get very excited.
No, I can't stand Home Alone. Like that doesn't. And you know what? Okay. Also, I feel like Chicago and New York City to me feel very like lonely cities. Like you can be very anonymous in them, and maybe even Philadelphia too. Actually, ironically, since I live here,
Philadelphia.
But I feel like, yeah, I feel like Seattle. That feels like I feel like that seems like you could be less anonymous, being in a big city. I don't know.
See, Chicago's Midwestern, so I just always think of it as being super friendly, don't you know? Like, they don't actually say don't you know in Chicago. I'm just trying to get my point across. If you're actually from Chicago, I'm not trying to insult you. Your city is pretty cool. Plus, American Girl Store, first American Girl Store was in Chicago. Can we talk about that?
Becky moves to Illinois on next week's episode of Talking Amongst Ourselves.
It will be Central Time.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm trying to
I guess
think
the
of
next.
I don't think there's a place that turns me off.
Oh, I don't love the beach. I will throw one out there. I'm not super thrilled about the beach, and I don't enjoy stories set in corporate anything.
Oh, okay. I would agree with that.
Even if it's more of a chick flick. I haven't actually read Devil Wears Prada. I've seen the movie. That one's like slightly different because it's fashion. But if there were to be a story about like a young intern at this corporate office, even if the corporate side of it is just a side thing, it's kind of a turn off. Again, not saying that it's bad, but for some reason I'm like, no, I don't think that's something I would enjoy.
I think modern day New York City, I'm just not that interested. I think because there is so much like New York City gets plenty of PR and like plenty of books like set in it. So I feel kind of like, you don't know me, like you can't make me read books set there.
Also, I wonder, Kate, because New York and Chicago are so, how do you feel about books set in LA? Like, let's just throw out some of the 3 largest cities in the United States. Is it because you love small towns so much that you're just like, New York, Chicago, LA, way too big. Give me a small town.
LA to me is very unappealing because I feel like there are so many like, I mean, all of the like scandals that have come out, like Harvey Weinstein and stuff. So I feel like there's a lot of people who just are not kind to one another. Like, I mean, like in the celebrity world, and like I've heard people talk about like getting into an acting union and to get jobs and everything. It just sounds so unappealing. So some like Seattle would more appeal to me.
Okay.
Because that's like hipster and like they're really into reading and art. So maybe Paris would appeal to me. Yeah. And London.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Like not trying to argue with you or like back you in a corner or anything, but just for the sake of discussion, because we were talking amongst ourselves.
So I realized actually I didn't list Midwest, but for historical fiction, I love like pioneer stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, the next category is types of people, okay? And I found out, kind of unpacked one of my categories that I didn't even realize was a category. But it is a woman on her own, which is in a lot of Mary Stewart. And like it's in the Hattie Big Sky that I'm reading. It's like Witch of Blackbird Pond. And she has to be feisty and she can be snarky. Like I love like snarky humor, so like Agatha Raisin. And I love if she has like tough circumstances that she's like going up against, or if she has a lot of baggage. I don't know why, but like
okay. Have you read Where the Crawdads Sing?
Okay.
I'm like, wait, this sounds like something you would like, but I felt like reading it that you might not like it, and I'm getting confused. Have you read it?
Okay, I ended up DNFing it, but I think it might have been in August when I was in like a terrible reading space. So I don't know if I gave it a fair shot, and I can't remember what it was. I think it just hadn't gripped me yet, and I didn't feel like it's a very literary book, and so I just didn't feel like I always have trouble feeling motivated to put in a lot of work to modern literary fiction, but I feel more motivated to put in work to older classics. Yeah, but you really liked it?
Yes and no. I was like conflicted. I didn't love the ending. I felt like the ending was not what I wanted for the character.
Yes.
So I don't know. Like, I mean, some people loved it, and some people could be like, yeah, that was totally a great ending. I can totally see how somebody would like the ending. But I like reading through the book, I think I wanted the character to be a certain way, and the ending made her seem different than the way I wanted her to be, or whatever. I don't know really quite how to describe it, but I just remember feeling like, at the end, like, no, like that's not how it should go. Can we rewrite this part?
I think I am kind of like more of a hipster than I realized too about hyped books, where I am again like, you don't know me. Like I feel like it's just like shoved on me. And with so many hyped books, then in a year, like no one's talking about it anymore.
True. Very
true.
So
many of the hyped books that I've read have been like, I had to force myself through it, and it just ends up being 3 stars.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like the new Sanditon series. Like if it was just like they made their own new series, I would have had a lot more of an open mind, but they like stamped Jane Austen on it with like modern, postmodern like storytelling. And so I'm like immediately like, I'm not interested at this point.
So. Oh, I'm the same way as you, Kate, with that kind of stuff. Like not every series. Years ago, I remember picking up one of them in like the store, and it had on it like their favorite novel was Wuthering Heights, and like this like Emily Bronte stamp on the cover, and I'm just like, Emily Bronte would have thought this is garbage. Like, how dare you use her as an advertisement for your book? Like, I haven't read it, but like, I just got all in a huff about it. Like, this is not Emily Bronte. Like, you don't know Emily Bronte. No.
That's like big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Not. You just don't put that on the cover of your YA vampire novel. Like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You gotta earn it. You gotta be way more creepy. Sparkly vampires, no. Emily Bronte would have literally turned up her nose.
You just watch her while she's sleeping. That's pretty creepy. Okay, Bethany. Sorry, we total rabbit trail. My fault. Types of people you like in a story.
Okay, I like. This is gonna sound so pathetic and like whatever, but I like these stories where there's like a male character and he has to like prove that he is like something like loyal or faithful, not, I don't know, to like some grander notion. Like he has to like show his true colors. Like he could be misunderstood as something, but he's showing his true colors for something. Like,
Bethany, have you ever read this author named Charles Dickens by any chance?
Oh, he's my favorite, like, ever. So, yeah. Also, the Scarlet Pimpernel fills that category. Have you guys read that?
It's on my list for this year.
Okay, that's it. I'm done with this conversation. I can't go on. You guys haven't read the Scarlet Pimpernel?
I'm cursed, okay? Because how Becky said she likes her books to be different, and so I read Les Miserables and Tale of Two Cities, and I'm I'm good on French Revolution. And so
no.
I tried
you should have started with Scarlet Pimpernel. You should have started.
I can't undo it. I tried. I can't undo it.
Maybe I started with Scarlet Pimpernel and then worked my way up. I haven't finished Les Mis. I started it years ago and never got through. I was like, oh, I'm gonna read it before the movie. Didn't happen. The movie came, I watched, I went, and I was like, well, now I know the story. I'm good.
That's awesome.
But anyway, sorry, Becky. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Oh, is it my turn, or did you have another one to add, Kate?
It's your turn.
Okay. I have a longer list. So I guess I'll start with the broadest category, and that's, I started writing it out, and then I realized pretty much any social class. Because I was like, I like reading stories about aristocrats. I like reading stories about the working class. I like reading stories about suburban moms. all the classes, except for maybe royalty. Not that there's anything wrong with royalty, but that's royalty or something set in like a king's court. I'm less interested in. But I just find social class interesting. Again, regardless of whether it's high class, low class, middle class, city, urban, suburban. And I don't know if it's because I enjoy the interaction of the people, or if there's this, I'm cheering on the lower class, I relate to the middle class, I aspire to be the upper class kind of mental game going on. But yeah, I started writing it out, and it's just like, I love all of the classes, and I really enjoy seeing it pop up in literature, which make classics really fun, because classics love talking about class, and I love it.
Yes. Okay, introspective characters.
Ooh.
So we can really thank Jane Austen for that. So like she created, it's called Free and Direct Discourse, where it will be like, and then Mary Ann thought about how much she missed Willoughby. Like, we didn't get that before Jane Austen, which is like that's so revolutionary for the novel. And like, thank you, Jane, because ever since then, novels, you just get such an intimate portrait of the characters.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
I like problematic female characters.
So what do you mean by problematic?
I mean, like, they themselves are extremely, like, their own antagonists, and like Emma from Jane Austen.
Yes.
That's a good example. Bella Wilfer.
Yes.
What's Lady Audley's Secret?
Mm.
Yeah.
Bathsheba Everdeen. I find her to be a little problematic. I'm not gonna say like
she was too much for me.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that. And
No,
even in Wuthering Heights, Kathy.
Yes.
In
No,
Wuthering- yeah.
I totally agree, and that's the way Elizabeth Gaskell I think is really good at that, and the way I
yes,
heard
she is.
yeah Katie from Books and Things say it, and I've totally stolen it, is flawed but sympathetic characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, like just like family members, like there are these things about them that drive you up the wall, but then they have these things that you're like, you're so wonderful, how you're really empathetic, or you're always willing to help me if I need help.
Yeah.
And that's how people are. So yeah, I resonate with that.
Yep.
Becky, do you have another one?
Yeah. So again, overarching, like pretty much any social class, but kind of subcategory in slightly more working class, or like lower middle class. If it says nanny or governess or teacher on the cover, I'm immediately interested because I love children so much, and there are so many great. And the joke in mysteries is like the help always know what's going on, or it was always the maid, or it's always the butler. And I feel like a nanny or a governess is this really interesting in between class place. She's usually responsible. Well, she is responsible for raising the children, but she's usually responsible for raising more upper class or upper middle class children. But she's still the help, but she's kind of a level up from a maid, or a milkmaid or a farmhand or something. So watching a nanny or a governess who kind of has authority, but has this really interesting dynamic with people in a class above her, I find really fascinating. And similarly, if it's a story about some kind of a domestic, like a maid, or like the Jeeves and Wooster books, where you have the dynamic of an aristocrat and his butler who's better educated on how things are done in society than the aristocrat is, or like a or I enjoy crafting, so like a seamstress or someone who knits, or like a woodworker, or someone who does a job kind of serving people of a higher class. And I feel like vicar also fits in this category, because they're usually what, Kate?
Just piggybacking off that, mine one on the list is amateur or detective, but with a hobby.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I had like detective, but I agree, like more of a Sherlock Holmes, like gentleman's detective kind of, or like I know in the Agatha Raisin book, she's more like amateur detective, right? Just like
yes, yeah. And I only read the first one, but I really liked it. The Mrs. Jeffrey series. She's a housemaid.
Fun.
Yeah,
okay, we've got a maid there.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, and what's one that's really cool is the Daisy Dalrymple series. She is a journalist, and so it just so happens that every house she goes to do an article at, there's a body. And now one that I wish there was, I'm sure there's got to be a cozy mystery series out there, but I love the TV show Rosemary and Thyme, and there are these two ladies who have a gardening business, and they go to English estates and solve. It's always like a plant-based murder. Yeah, so I'm sure there's got to be like a
There's a book called Daisies for Innocence, I think, that's set in a florist shop.
Oh,
it was too cozy for me, and that goes into like I'll touch on that later as to what I didn't enjoy, a buzzword that like I didn't enjoy about it. But
yes. Any more for types of people?
I like journalists, and like any kind of like writer. I like stories where the 13th Tale, for example, she comes in, she's she's writing, investigating, she's been called on to do an article, those kind of stories where it's like somebody coming in because there's going to be like an amazing story brought in. It's going to be, there's going to be literature mentioned a lot of times. So
yeah. I liked in The Shadowy Horses, and I think it's in The Winter Sea, by Susanna Kearsley. There's a writer in the modern storyline.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Okay, so the next
I have got one other like person
Sorry,
or people. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you had another one or not. Okay. So I really enjoy strangers whose lives intersect. So this happens sometimes in mysteries where you're like, oh, I didn't know that these people were once engaged or had this relative in common or knew each other at boarding school 15 years ago, or have a friend in common that you don't know about. But I really enjoy stories where two people who don't know each other have a lot in common or have a lot of people in common and they don't know it and their lives intersect. And whether or not they necessarily end up becoming friends, just I love watching the pieces unfold because it's a way of uncovering the plot, but it's also a way of uncovering the people.
Yes.
So strangers intersecting, I guess that's could be however many people you want, but it's a storyline and a kind of person I really enjoy.
Very cool.
We have 4 comments. Sorry. Should I
no,
read
that's
those?
good.
I didn't know if I was supposed to be like keeping track of those or not. Like, oh crap, we have comments. Joanna says, Kate, you should really give the Scarlet Pimpernel a chance. I am not a fan of French Revolution stories, but I love the Scarlet Pimpernel. So there, haha. I'm justified.
It's so full of politics. Huh.
It's not too bad. It's really more adventure. Bobby Stu Davis sends a smiley face. Bree Hill says, hey, yes, I love when the protagonist is a writer. Same. Thank you, Bree. Everybody's backing me up today. It's great. And she also says, I love the intersecting or characters in historical fiction.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so then on to themes. All right, and I'll start with joys and hardships. So I like there being these highs and lows in a story, and I don't mind it actually, like the lows being really low as long as there's really big joys at the end, because to me, if you hit those lows, then it makes the beautiful ending kind of all the more rewarding. So like Each Little Bird That Sings by Deborah Wiles, I think is her last name, was one I just read for middle grade March, and it does have some really, really sad things, but in the end, it's like such a beautiful story that I wouldn't have been impacted unless the sad things happened in it also. So yeah, joys and hardships I like. Bethany?
I like the suspense, I don't know, like not like a grim suspense, but like a I don't know which way this is going suspense in a story.
Kind of tension.
Yeah, tension. Yeah, I think that's good. Like I don't know that I would like, the ones where it's like, ooh, let's go in the garage and there's a guy in the garage with the chainsaw waiting to kill everybody kind of suspense. But is this person who they say they are suspense? And like almost a more safe suspense, if that makes sense.
So I had written down a twisted tale to kind of communicate a similar idea of a story being spun and untold, and I don't quite know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yes. I would agree with that.
Going off of that. Yeah. And Kate, going off of yours, I had written, again, partially because I think I enjoy reading about social class, but a hard work, like overcoming an obstacle kind of story, which again is often seen in like American Midwest prairie type stories or historical fiction, or in schools because you're learning, or if you're, a domestic and you're trying to prove yourself to the lady or the master of the house, or if you're a detective and you're trying to solve solve a problem. I really enjoy the overcoming life's difficulties, even if they are go similar to what you said, but I had written down just hardworking. I didn't think this was possible, and I pushed and I pushed, and I made it. And there's just this sense of accomplishment at the end. It just feels so rewarding.
I had written personal growth and self-discovery.
Yeah.
Those are in those are in those. And I feel like you really get to know the characters well when they're going through things like that. Okay, and then female friendship or just groups of friends.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, friendship is the best.
Yeah,
Good
I have
one.
friendship right now and family. I love seeing dynamics of family, especially Kate, as you said when you were talking about, well, you and Bethany both, like a problematic woman. Like you love her, but she still has her issues. I feel like that pops up with family. This person is annoying me, or there's this tension, and it feels really personal, but you can't change it. Family's hopefully always there, you know.
Yes.
Or you can, you know, be written out of a will, and that also makes it really interesting. So
definitely. Bethany, what's your next one?
I just like anything with like an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of the examples. Like, I mean, The Hobbit's always a good, like, basic example
yes.
of an adventure story. Getting people out of their comfort zones is usually what adventure kind of circles around. You know, sometimes people are comfortable going on adventure, but usually it's like two characters, and one is comfortable going on adventure, and one is really not. And that's a super fun dynamic to read.
It's a different dynamic, but it's an adventure story. It's A Town Like Alice.
Oh, I've read that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did love that one. That was so good.
So memorable. Oh.
that's
yeah.
It's another one that is on my list, but I haven't read yet. But I know you guys have talked about enjoying it, so I'll have to.
It is like, it has an amazing romance, but it is like not smarmy. It's like,
it's good.
Oh, good. It's like
Bree Hill has another comment. She has a question. Do your buzzwords change with any nonfiction?
Oh,
So,
I didn't even think about nonfiction.
So far, no. Although I will say, for me personally, I do enjoy microhistories. So, like a nonfiction about something that's really, really specific. For example, my husband found a book for me all about arsenic poisonings and like what arsenic does to the body and why arsenic was used often in the Victorian era and how it became known as the inheritor's powder and all these other things. That's like really specific. I think I would say the only thing that would change, I don't normally enjoy medical dramas I've never really read a medical drama book. I'm not really into medical dramas on television. But in nonfiction, I don't have a medical background, but I do find things like how the human body works really interesting. But that's the only thing that I can think of that like I would read in nonfiction, but probably not fiction. That's a really good question. I have to reevaluate my life now.
I know. So it's not necessarily a theme, but I didn't know where else to put this in the categories, is domesticity. So just like the house that they're in, what they're eating, what they're drinking, what they're wearing, all of that. I love. If they take a bath before bed, I want to know it.
Jane of Lantern Hill, anyone?
Yes.
Jane of Hill. Domesticity, up on a pedestal. It's beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I find it interesting that you mentioned food because food is one of those things that just like annoys me in books. And
you have it like a distraction.
I do. And it's not that I dislike food. I like food just as much as the next person. But like the people who are like, ooh, it's a foodie book and there are all these descriptions of meals. I'm like, but we eat 3 times a day. That just seems so ordinary. Like, that doesn't seem very exciting to me.
I definitely, like, food memoirs don't interest me. Those don't pique my interest, because that's, like, too much on the food.
No, fiction or nonfiction. If it's like, oh, this food. And I've read a couple where I was like, ooh, this is different. This is something I haven't read before. And I was like, oh my goodness, there is so much baking in this book. Measuring out flour. I can't take it.
That's so funny.
But that's just me.
That's fine. Bethany, what's your next? Do you have another one?
For which category are we on?
For themes.
Themes. Okay. Oh, obviously mystery. Like, mystery theme.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love all the mysteries. I mean, not all the mysteries, because like I don't like the hard-boiled stuff as much.
And
Not in.
forensics.
I don't like scary. I don't want it to be scary. Like
Yes.
my favorite mysteries are when the investigation on the person who has been murdered, the person was bad. It's like, good. Glad they're dead. Okay, let's find out who killed them. And then usually it's interesting finding out who killed them, because then that person's like, ooh, what's the conflict with them? Were they really bad, or were their motives protecting somebody? Or
Mm-hmm.
I don't, it adds a whole new level and it doesn't feel as sinister. So I'm okay with that. Cozy mysteries all the way.
Yes.
I
Becky,
really. Oh, go ahead, Kate.
I was just asking if you had another one.
Yeah, I kind of going off of that, some sense of justice or redemption, or the two intertwined. And I gotta say, this Stephen King stories do tend to be too scary for me, but he writes characters who change very well, where you'll start the book with one character and you'll end the book with that character, and at the end you're like, oh my goodness, this person is totally different than he was at the beginning of the book. And there's no like lightning strike from heaven that made it so. It's just all very gradual, and by the end they've really changed, or they've been redeemed, or they've reconciled with someone.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Or some, in Stephen King novels, sometimes people change for the worse, which then I'm like, wah! Because he's a good writer and he's good at it. I'm just like, I have a very complicated relationship with Stephen King. But yeah, and just a redemption story that like makes you feel good at the end, and trials were overcome and relationships were mended. It just makes me so happy.
Yeah. Yes. And then I don't think this will come as a huge surprise to both of you. I have Connection to the Land.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I understand that for you. It's a less on the totem pole for me, but that's like so cute.
Yes. Do you have any other ones for theme, or should we move?
Faith or religion.
Oh.
Whether or not the character is, actively religious or not. And again, this is something that you kind of see in classics. And I think it was an element that I really enjoyed in Villette that I wasn't expecting to. But there's a lot of how one's religion plays into their life and their culture that I found really fascinating and really enjoyed exploring, especially for that era. And you see it a lot in classics, and it's something that I really enjoy.
Okay, so next is time periods, and this one I was able to just be like, boom, boom, boom. I knew right away. First one is Revolutionary War era United. Oh, it's like so. Yeah, it's a really interesting, and it's not done as often, I think. So that's part of why it appeals to me. And I just found out there's a like older middle grade series by Laurie Anderson somebody, and it's like a very inclusive historical fiction. So it shows you what
cool.
of Black people in America at the time would have been. So it's like freedom for everyone except for you guys. Like the Declaration of Independence. So I want to look into that, because that would be, and it's 4 parts, so I think that would be really cool to really get to know the characters over the course of those books. And it's a lot less intimidating because it's a middle grade series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Bethany?
Golden Age.
I didn't have that on my list, surprisingly.
What?
I didn't think of it, but you're right.
Okay, what's on your list, Becky? 50s, the 50s? Come on, tell me the truth.
That was one of them.
To clarify, Golden Age is like interwar years, right?
Yes. So yes.
Okay.
Between World War I and World War II. So 20s and 30s.
20. Yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I had written down the Depression, but I was thinking more just general historical fiction, not necessarily mysteries, although I do enjoy Depression era mysteries. But I was thinking more Depression and World War II era stories have that lives intersecting, people coming together, overcoming hardships, dealing with life's ups and downs kind of narrative that I really enjoy.
All
But
right.
Golden Age overlaps with that. For some reason, I wasn't thinking mysteries. I think I was thinking more historical fiction when I was thinking about time period.
Okay, I'm about to drop a bomb. World War II, off-putting to me because the World War II like fiction mystery category is like so saturated. And
It is.
okay, you know what? How I didn't take an interest in Echo because there was a plot line in that I was like, read that and all the light we cannot see. So I'm very much like, okay, you better impress me with World War II fiction. So I did just read The War That Saved My Life, and that I gave it 5 stars. Like I loved it. But I think there is a fair amount of samey World War II fiction and mysteries that comes out.
I think that's fair, and I think I can. And I agree on some level. Again, I think that the hardworking survival type stories that tend to come out of World War II, I really enjoy. World War II romances, where it's like a soldier going off. I feel it's not a bad story, and there are good ones, but I feel like that's one that I kind of feel can be overdone. But I think if World War II is combined with some other of my buzzwords, where it's like, oh, it's a period that I like, and it's set in a mansion, and it has strangers who intersect, or it's a maid during World War II, or something like that, then my interest is like immediately peaked.
Yes.
Also, I think Becky, you like the economical, like,
I do.
Yeah, characters have to be resourceful. Yes, thank you. I'm like, what's the word? What's the word?
Yes, which I guess kind of fits with hardworking, but yes, I really enjoy resourceful characters. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Civil War, I think is a great story. Like he's like,
that's on my list of like, it's a turn off for me.
Okay, what is it about the Civil War that's a turn off for you? I mean, it's not like the Civil War was great. I mean, fiction set in the Civil War.
I think that's what it is it was a period when our country was torn apart, and it just makes me so sad. And and you talk about World War II being done. I feel like the slavery conversation always, which it was a huge part of the Civil War, but I feel like that conversation, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about slavery, I'm not interested in stories of slavery, because again, they tie into like the hardworking overcoming something and class stories that I enjoy, but I feel like when something is set in the Civil War, it just gets slammed with dividing people into slave owners and abolitionists, and it just becomes like this very dividing
broad strokes,
and some abolitionists are still racist, and and some slave owners, and I'm not at all saying, oh, it was fine that they owned slaves. Some were absolutely horrible, and some still should not have owned slaves, but maybe weren't as horrible. Not saying at all that like slavery was okay or trying to justify it, but it just, I feel as though people get stereotyped and typecast with Civil War stories, and it just makes me sad. or like the North will like assume that everyone from the South is racist, or the South will assume that everyone from the North like is just after money and is just an industrialist, and it just frustrates me. I'm like, I don't like these arguments. I don't want to read about it.
And coming from Mississippi, I cannot tell you how many times like someone has said, oh, you're from Mississippi, it's really racist there. Like, what other state is it okay to just immediately when you meet someone talk about a negative stereotype?
Yeah.
Like I meet someone from New York, yeah, the taxes are really high there. It's just like, so like you can't come up with anything else. What about Southern hospitality? So I did find it really interesting in the memoir that I read about, or the biography I read about Louise May Alcott and her father, that he ran a school, and a black family in the town started sending their little girl there, and the other white families were like, oh, no, she is not going to the same school as our children. And so he said, nope, she's allowed to go. and then everyone else pulled their kids out. This is in like Concord, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think you're right that it has to be done well.
Yes, and I will say I did not at all expect to enjoy Gone with the Wind because it is set during the Civil War, and I gave it 5 stars. I really did end up enjoying Gone with the Wind because it did have a lot of complexities.
Yes.
But just if you were to say it's set during the Civil War, I'm kind of like, okay, you should have told me something else before you told me that. You got to work up to that.
Yes.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder. Now, Kate, you can tell us why you love Civil War era stories.
Well, it's a really tumultuous time. And then I think kind of what is the like official pioneer era? Like the pioneer era like a little bit like overlaps with that, but also like I realized in the Little House on the Prairie series there's really not much talk about the Civil War or slavery. Right. It's kind of like, oh yeah, that's all happening in a different part of the country. But I guess kind of I feel like it's just really kind of to see people settling the land and working really hard just to make it through their day-to-day life, like in the Little House series. So I feel like I kind of a little bit view pioneer era and Civil War a little bit intertwined.
They do overlap. They do.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Bethany, what is your next time period that you love?
Real quick, I'm going to interrupt because Jessica, Wisconsin Mom, says, I need my glasses. I am like having a hard time. For a book set in the Civil War, I love Across 5 Aprils. So good. It has the nuance you would want, and the writing is beautiful.
Ooh.
Which I can say yes to that too because Across 5 Aprils is fantastic. I love that book.
Oh, you loved it.
Yes, it was a long time ago that I read it. I mean, I was like probably in 9th grade or something.
I've never heard of it.
Really?
It won a Newbery.
No.
It didn't. Okay.
I can't say that I know if it won a Newbery or not.
I was saying no, I haven't heard of it. Not no, it didn't win a Newbery. I was just saying I hadn't heard of it.
Oh, okay. So Becky, I think that is a really good word that she used is nuance. So maybe like a nuanced Civil War story.
Yes. Where it's not just broken up into abolitionists and slave owners, because that's just like it's like too dividing for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. Okay, Bethany, what is your next time period you love?
I like obviously the Victorian era. I was gonna jump on with the wars and stuff like World War II, but if I'm reading like a war story, I want it to be set in a different country for whatever reason, like Germany or in I don't know, like somewhere, because I feel like you guys said, it's so saturated. Like you get used to hearing this war story from the perspective of America, and I like seeing it from the perspective of a different country. I don't know why. That's one way I can get into war stories, because otherwise I'm just like, oh, this is so sad. It's horribly sad. I can't bear the sadness. Why do people do this to each other? I just want to sit and cry. So I tend to try to stay away from them unless it's like it's got to be like really specific and set somewhere else and really good. Like I'm just dying here. The Book Thief.
It's
amazing. So good. It's just very like zoomed in to like a specific family, that there's a lot of like literature love in this. They're fostering. It's not necessarily about the war as much as just like this family, and not a lot of like terrible things are happening to them specifically, but they're dealing with stuff because of the war. I don't know. It's not, I don't know, traumatizing, I guess. I don't know how to describe it.
Feel a little bit more separated from it.
A little bit, yeah. Like, and you get a perspective of what it was like for other people who were in the midst of it, but yet they were maybe not like the enemy, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like they had to watch what they were doing themselves, but they weren't viewed as an enemy by who we viewed as the enemy. You know, Germany was like, oh yeah, these are Germans, we're protecting them, but we want them to conform. And I don't know. It's just, it has to be really specific for me to jump on board. Like, I want a completely different perspective, and I want it to be a little more safe.
Yes.
I don't want to follow someone into a concentration camp.
Oh,
Like,
no.
it's hard. I will read them once in a while, but it's like, oh, why do people do this to each other?
Yes.
It's hard.
Yes.
But yeah, Victorian literature is always safe. It's always my
It's
like.
true.
Okay, time period. Let's go into Victorian era.
All that we have to worry about in Victorian novels are consumption.
Tuberculosis. Yes.
Yeah, tuberculosis. Yeah, it's like the one enemy.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, Becky, do you have another time period?
I was gonna say Victorian, which is a popular time period for all three of us. Also, mid-century, so the 1950s and 1960s. I enjoy, again, both fiction and nonfiction. Now that I'm thinking about Bree's question, Bree, I'm gonna be thinking about this all night. So thank you. I love being able to like, oh, this is thought provoking. Yeah. It's a time period that I've enjoyed for as long as I can remember, and the more teasing and hairspray, the better. So.
Hey, I realize. I guess I really like intense settings for historical fiction. Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
The bubonic plague.
When you said intense, I was like, she's not gonna say bubonic plague, is she? I never even really thought about that as are there lots of books set with the bubonic plague, Kate?
You know what's funny is I don't know if there are lots, but one of my absolute favorite books is called The Doomsday Book. It's really cool because it's a time traveling book, and they mean this woman is living in a time when they have cured the common cold. But so it's set in the future, but then one person gets it, and everyone, it's like really intense flu to them because they've never had the cold. So they want her to time travel back. Why? I can't remember why they want her to, but they miscalculate, and so she ends up being sent back during the bubonic plague. And I think part of it is, I think I can kind of brace myself for impact when things are set. Like if I know it's going to be set in that time. What I really don't like is like, I was reading, I started a historical fiction by Amy Tan. And it was one of the most dreadful things. I had never imagined something that someone could do to another human being. And I was like, I'm out, like, peace. And I didn't know it was coming. But I kind of expect there to be trauma in those books, and I'm, like, braced for it. I just don't like to be, like, have, like, a sneak attack happen.
You're like,
but it was really, I mean, it's not medieval. What is medieval? Like, what is the category for medieval? I guess it counts as later than medieval. But
like Renaissance era? Like,
well, wasn't it in 1666? Was the bubonic plague?
I don't know. I don't read bubonic plague stories, apparently.
Weird. Oh, Angie from Literary Labor says, just FYI, I visited Natchez and Vicksburg. Oh my goodness. Those were so close to me a couple summers ago. My white co-worker, who's never been, warned me that I was going to experience extreme racism. Everyone was very welcoming. I didn't experience any racism.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, no words. Okay, bubonic plague, when was it? Let's see. Because I thought it was all the sixes and people thought the world was ending.
That sounds like people.
It does.
It sounds like people. It does. Nothing new under the sun.
No.
It was a lot better than I thought. 1347 to 1351.
I was thinking to when?
1347 to 1350.
History classes? I'd be wrong. That is a long time.
Yes, and 75 to 200 million. That's such an estimate, but 75 to 200 million people died.
That's a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess I like medieval settings also.
Well, the book about boy, medieval setting.
Yes, but now I'm so like, you don't even know how you felt about it. How will I feel?
Well, you might really like it. I'm not sure. I mean, like, sometimes books hit you weird.
Yeah,
And you're like,
no, it's
oh,
true.
did I like it or didn't I?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm.
Plus, I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, so I'm like analyzing books from a really weird angle most of the time. I mean, like how is this hitting me in my life? What I'm going through right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you have another time period?
No, I don't think so.
Becky,
Nope.
did you have one?
Nope.
Okay. I guess I also had ancient Egypt.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Which
I like that one too.
I say that, and I really haven't read much set in ancient Egypt. I just know I'm always like, ooh, I would like to read more set then.
Yeah. Well, it's all about buzzwords that.
Grade set then. Okay, our last category are adjectives / categories. Okay, so the first one, I'm on a middle grade high this month, so I'll just say middle grade.
Ooh. There you go.
Good one.
Good
Yes.
I'm
overarching.
gonna say Gothic before Becky gets it.
I had it on my list too.
I did have that on my list, but I wrote poison. If the word poison pops up on the back, I'm like, yes! So fascinating! And which is why my husband bought me that book about arsenic, because it was like, it's a poison.
Evil Becky is pleased.
Well, here's the thing. I enjoy mysteries, right? But stabbing is messy and just harsh because you got to get up close to the person. It's horrible.
That's cold. That's like such a cold way to kill someone.
Seriously. So if they're like, and someone was stabbed, I was like, that's just so, that's not nice. Not that murder's ever nice, but I was like, that you chose a bad one. And then gunshot
poison is just like rude, It's not like vicious.
Yeah, well, poison is like, it's premeditated, so it is malicious, but it's like not messy. Well,
it's kind of aggressive.
Not messy in books. I mean, poison will actually do horrible things to your body. That is often not mentioned in cozy mysteries, but it's a little more like passive. And I feel like gunshots tend to just come from pure anger, and they're more impulsive. And I don't think of myself as an impulsive person. I get annoyed with impulsive people. So I'm like, oh, you used a gun. Like, you just lost your head. And then stabbing, well, you're just cruel. But poison, I'm like, you planned this. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a really, really terrible thing that happened in my town growing up when somebody just in a rage was in an argument with family, like took his brother's life. And then when he realized he had done it, took his own life.
Oh.
And I hate thinking about that because I'm like, what if the gun had just not been loaded? You know what I mean? And it was just like in an instant, he decided to do that. And then just was horrified, like didn't feel like living after that.
Yeah.
Also, I've heard in mystery books that it's like they say like poison is a woman's crime or something like that. Yeah. Okay. What was one that? Oh, fairy tale. That always intrigues me.
Yeah.
Bethany, do you have another one?
Oh, sorry. Literary.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I always like that.
It depends on the literary.
It does.
If it's like a Man Booker Prize, I'm automatically less likely to enjoy it. Because if it's like, I get out of it, I'm like, what did I just read? What actually happened in that story?
It's that's a really broad, it's very broad term, but like, I don't know. When I think literary, I'm thinking like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Yes.
That's kind of like what's coming to my mind when I'm thinking literary. I love stories like that.
Yeah. Definitely. Becky, what's your next one?
So one that is very hit or miss is if the word secret pops up. Because there's a part of me that's like, ooh, I want to know the secret. But I think secrets can be hard to write. So the secret has to be written well. I get very annoyed when authors tease out a secret too hard. They're like, just start to tell you, like, and then there was that night, at the graveyard. And then it cuts to another scene and you're like, wait, what happened? Is this important? Is this not important? And they like tease it really heavily and then it ends up being nothing. But if it's more of a strangers intersecting, like discovering your past or discovering something that's happening in the future kind of secret, and it unfolds really well, then I love it.
Jane Eyre!
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Not to spoiler, but Jane Eyre is a great example of well done.
Tale also.
Yes.
What is it?
13th Tale.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
so books like that have a secret. Or I enjoyed The Clockmaker's Daughter. That one had a secret in it too. That I'm like, ooh, yes, interesting. But I read some other ones that I was just like, oh, this is just frustrating. And it felt as though the author was using the secret to drive the story instead of letting the plot drive itself.
Yes. Yep.
Frustrates me. So
you have not finished The Law and the Lady yet, right?
I have not. I am still enjoying it. I have not DNF'd it. I just had to put a pause because I've had a lot going on in life. So, but I am excited to. Yes, that does have a secret in it, and that is fun to watch unfold.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting up here right now and reading it. Becky's got us all hyped up on secrets.
Oh, it does have interesting women.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean,
we could just do a live show of us reading.
Yes.
Read with us.
That would be really cute.
It would. Okay. I have a funnily, like I worded this funnily, but I think you'll track with me once I unpack it. So middle grade boy books.
Ooh, yes.
So books that when I was younger, I would have been like, psh, boy book, not interested. Now,
right.
So, Jack Gantos's book. What is the first? I'm getting the second book and the first book mixed up, but it doesn't matter. Dead End in Norvelt, I think, is the first one. And it's about this little boy, and he has this like crazy, cranky old lady neighbor, and they slowly become friends. And he's like, it's based on how he was as a kid, and he had like very severe ADD, and so he like drove his teachers crazy because they didn't know the strategies to have to work with a kid with needs like that. And then also I just read The Wednesday Wars by Gary Schmidt, and oh my goodness, I love that book so much. So my thing to say is that I feel like books that are maybe more marketed towards girls, like The War That Saved My Life, and other ones, I feel like they use a lot of emotional highs to be the relief in there, which I like that, and that's fun. When I'm in the mood for that, I enjoy that. But I really like in like Wednesday Wars and Dead End in Norvelt, there's and Frendel. I actually just read Frendel also. There's humor in there as the relief. And so I love being able to really laugh, and it still has a lot of heart in it, and it has really profound messages that if you're paying attention, you'll get them. So I've just decided, like, I just love those. So now it's fun because I'm like, I'm just going to try to read everything by like Gary Schmidt, by Jack Gantos, Andrew Clements. So it's a very like different kind of reading experience that I didn't even know I would love.
That's really cool.
Very fun.
Do you ever feel like, oh, there are all these books that I feel like I should have read as a kid, but now I get to relive a childhood because I have to catch up on all of them?
Yeah, well, it does make me sad because some, like A Little Princess, I feel like I would have loved it if I had read it when I was little. But I just missed the boat on it. Bethany, do you have another category or adjective?
Let me see here. My list is all scribbly looking. Oh, cozy. Just like the cozy. Just not even just mysteries, but like, you know, I think a lot of times, especially summer going into fall, kind of want to read like a cozy book. Like some, as the weather's getting colder and, you're just feeling cozy, you want to read something cozy, or even in the dead of winter. But, with something small set in a location that's safe and that, it's just a lower, more quiet novel. I feel like The Rose Cottage might be a good example of that.
Oh,
Because that one was, I don't even know if that was really a mystery. It felt more just like kind of like a cozy novel.
mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it was very
by
lucky.
Mary Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it depends. It's all based on your mood at the time. But that is something that, you know, during a certain time of the year or whatever, I will like look for that. Be like, ooh, yeah, something cozy sounds nice. Like something in between all of these like page turners. I just finished The Woman in White. I need something that's quiet and calm. My heart can't take anymore.
Yes.
I can't imagine like just reading one like suspenseful like thriller book after another. I'd be a fucking mess. You got to break it up, you know.
Okay, though, on my list, and I put a line through it, are thrillers. Because
on your like no list?
Yeah,
like,
because we're talking like Victorian thriller, yes. But modern day thrillers, because there's 2 plot devices that in every single thriller I've read, I think I've read like 10 thrillers, and they've been in every single one, and that's sex as a plot device and violence against women as a plot device. And I'm just like,
don't like it. Yep.
Something else that I come across is violence against children, which is
yes.
No.
It's that's a little too intense for me.
Yes.
So Bethany, going off of your cozy, I wrote dark. Not thriller, but dark can if it's the right kind of dark, can be kind of cozy, because in contrast to the dark story, you just want to be someplace safe. So when I started The Law and the Lady, I was in a really good place, because I was like, I kind of want a classic, but I want something easy to read, there's this like sense of doom, and I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. It's easy to read. It's a classic, and it's dark, and I just feel so cozy. This is so great, and I just need to actually get around to finishing it.
That is okay.
But dark as in like dark storm clouds or drafty mansion.
Yes.
Not dark is like, oh my goodness, people like this should not exist. This is absolutely horrible. Violence against people kind of dark. Just like atmospheric dark.
Yes, atmospheric. Yep. Well, I think we made it through our list.
I think we did.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for watching and contributing to the discussion. And I don't think we have planned out our April live show, but hopefully we will. Wait, April's the next month.
Kate, did you have any more responses on your Instagram to Bookish Buzzwords that people like before we leave? I totally forgot about it until now.
I did too. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space commented, she says, Castle. Castle always grabs her, and classic. I would say I agree with both of them.
Yeah.
Same.
I think I agree with this one. Tony Book Text said independent. So I definitely don't like the female characters to be like doormats. Like that really like like I think in The Woman in White, if we did not have Marian Halcombe to accompany Laura Fairley, like I would not have enjoyed it nearly as much. But the two of them together, muy bueno. Okay, then Kate from the novel Nomad says curious, complex, mysteriously, sinister, explore, nature bathing. I don't know that I heard that phrase much. Yeah. Ragtag. I would never have like come up with that word on my own, but I think that's like a word I would use for these like middle grade boy books that I was talking about.
Also fits well with class, like more working class, like.
Yes.
Love it.
Totally. And then Journey. And then Stephanie from That's What She Read said siblings. Rich people problems, which that's more you, like Leanne Moriarty, domestic dramas. I don't know how many of hers I would like to read. I think I would enjoy reading like one. I mean, like that was fun, but I don't know that I would. But I haven't actually read her, so maybe I will like crave more.
I actually love Leanne Moriarty, but she does deal with I think she does them very well, but she does deal with some topics that can be difficult for some people. I don't think she goes too over the top. So like some books may deal with like they tend to involve women. So one book, there's a lot of infertility, which if you're someone who has miscarried or hasn't been able to have kids, I could see that being really difficult. There's another book that deals with domestic violence that again I think brings a lot of awareness to it and is done really well. And it wasn't too graphic for me, but if you've been in a domestic violence situation, I could see that being really challenging for you to read. So I personally love her books, but I don't always rate them on Goodreads because I don't want someone to see that I love them and them read them without knowing some of the content and being like, oh, I didn't know this was in there. But so far, I've loved every book of hers that I've read.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yes.
if there was a particular book that you like wanted to know more about and you didn't mind like a couple spoilers, I could tell you which ones do or don't contain certain things.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
she does have a lot of like, female friends and family in her. I can enjoy reading. Again, rich people problems. Yes, all classes. I will take all the social classes. Give me all the problems.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, if you are watching later, thank you for watching. And don't hesitate to leave any comments with any buzzwords that you love because we'd like to see them later on. So have a good night, everyone. And we'll be back in April.
Bye.
Bye.